Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So today, as you can tell based on the title, we are talking about Lanvin and Peter Copping. So I must admit, Lanvin is a brand I've always been a little bit intrigued by. I only have one, it's like this knitted striped tank, as well as I have this necklace with the mother and child motif. But I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole looking at Lanvin as well as Peter Copping's work especially, and it was recently announced that Lanvin will be doing fashion shows again after a 2-year hiatus. We are going to see them this men's fashion week in Paris, and there's going to be a co-ed fashion show. This is also going to be the first collection we are going to see under British designer Peter Copping. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Correct me down below if you know. But he joined the house September 2024. This is exciting because Lanvin is one of the oldest French fashion houses. It's actually the oldest French couture house. Now, they are not going to be doing couture. The last couture collection was actually in 1991 under Claude Montana. But with Peter Copping as the new creative director, this is going to be a new era. As the CEO relays, there's a new strategy. They are going to be launching new lines, and according to CEO Siddhartha Shukla, they are going to be offering new accessories, a new line of bags and shoes. And he also states, quote, Lanvin should be a house of elegance, sophistication, and French chic. This is about reframing the identity and making it not just nostalgic about the past of the oldest couture house, but also very much looking ahead. And I feel like this is kind of a sentiment I hear a lot of brands express, but I don't know if that always translates really well. But Lanvin, which is owned by China's Lanvin Group, previously For Sun Fashion Group, its sales have been down recently, down by 15.4% to 48 million euros according to Vogue. But of course, being very on brand with this channel, I wanted to take a look at the handbag offering. We love talking about handbags here. They did specifically cite that there's going to be a new line of bags and accessories signaling this new era. And for a brand that has been pretty quiet recently, they do actually have a cute line of accessories. At least there was sort of a moment of popularity due to, and just like that, with the pencil case cat bag with that cat handle. Very fun, very whimsical. And I also thought it was interesting how recently they just did a collaboration with Future, and they also have the pencil case bag, but instead of the cat, they've got the eagle. They also have some other handbags. There's the Concerto Arpege line. To me, I'm not gonna lie, it's very old Celine classic vibes, but the hardware does kind of have this like beveled edge to it, and it references actually the perfume bottles created by the founder Jean Lanvin. And arpege is actually a musical reference, or French for arpeggio. We also have the sequence bag, so this takes inspiration from the sequence jewelry line, and it has a cylindrical hardware piece which references the geometric shape of the notes in medieval musical scores. Another point that I want to make is a lot of these bags, they reference music. The concerto, the sequence, they have the hobo symbol bag, they have the melody line. And I found this quite fascinating because I feel like fashion does like to reference art or architecture or design, or when it is in the form of music, it's more so how the musician dresses or the style of the musician. But I thought taking inspiration from the composition of music, the melody, the sequence, or even just medieval musical scores. Of course, it references the history of the brand. Jean Lanvin, she designed the arpege line when her daughter, she used to practice her musical scales on the piano. Very unique point of inspiration for handbags. And as I'm looking through the website, I feel like it's only gonna go up from here. I feel there's like a real opportunity when looking at other categories to really revamp the brand. And I really hope that Peter Copping gets an opportunity to express his vision. He has had so much experience, but not only that, I think he can bring a sense of romance that I feel hasn't really been something we've been talking about in fashion. Maybe we're seeing it hints here and there with some more nostalgic collections, but there's something about like femininity and romance that I think he could really channel through this brand, and it would be really exciting to see. And again, I really hope that Peter Copping gets to express his vision for the brand. I was curious about Lanvin Group, which is the fashion side of Faux Sun International. So this is a Chinese multinational conglomerate, but on the fashion side, Lanvin Group consists of Sergio Rossi, St. John, Wolford, among others. But I wanted to highlight Peter Copping because he's a designer that has so much experience. He started his career at Sonia Rykiel and then at Louis Vuitton for over a decade with Marc Jacobs. He then moved on to become creative director at Nina Ricci and then Oscar de la Renta. And then at Balenciaga, he was doing couture and other special projects. I could definitely see his experience specifically in the form of couture, even though Lanvin isn't doing couture. When it comes to the brand's history, when I look at a lot of the Lanvin iconic creations, the robe de style, robe de style, that silhouette was really popular in the 1920s, but it was also very embellished. I would love to see a return to that, and I could see, based on some of Peter Copping's previous works, bringing some of that French embroidered Art Deco motifs back to the house. I think it would be really cool to see that in like the form of accessories as well. I think Lanvin just has such an interesting history to pull from, especially with those 1920s silhouettes. Another point is Lanvin's signature color is that Lanvin blue. It's really pretty. As mentioned earlier, Lanvin's signature perfume was Arpège, inspired by Jean Lanvin's daughter when she used to play music, and even her love for her daughter, it's very prevalent throughout the brand. She only had one child, and she had her daughter at age 30, which wasn't really typical back in the day, but it's just a beautiful image, an image of her and her child. And I also think another iconic era for Peter Copping to reference would be the work of Albert Albaz. He was the artistic director at Lanvin from 2001 to 2015, so quite some time, especially considering if you think about the terms of most creative directors nowadays, that's like an eternity in fashion. When you look at a lot of his very embellished gowns, draped dresses, there's a lot of embroidery and beadwork and beautiful appliques that heavily references the work of Jean Lanvin. And it was also just like an era of very statement accessories, especially when you think about like jewelry, like statement necklaces, chains, crystals, ribbons. I feel like this is already on the rise, and could definitely see some of that. And even if you just look at some of his work at Nina Ricci to Oscar de la Renta, there was a lot of pattern, embroidery, lace, very feminine. And I think he's also from this era of designer that, when I think about like Oscar de la Renta, where they wanted to make women just feel really pretty, really beautiful, and there's this romance about their designs. He took over Oscar de la Renta when Oscar de la Renta passed away. In contrast to, I think, a lot of what we are seeing on like the fashion forward side, a lot of it is very edgy or ironic. Interestingly enough, he was last at Balenciaga, which I think also adds an interesting edge to probably what he does and how he thinks about fashion now. I'm very curious to see his first collection. I was also very fascinated by his home. So he has this 16th century manor in Normandy, and he has designed a whole collection of homewares, textiles, things like cushions, blankets, wallpaper, along with his French husband, Rambert Rigaud. And there's this great Financial Times piece on their home, and they talk about how it's basically haute couture for the home. This has been a long-term project that they've worked together, worked alongside French interior designer Jacques Grange. We recently talked about his work with what he did at the Rose recent Paris store location. But yes, the home, it's a beautiful home filmed with their own creations as well as their love for antiques and beautiful tapestries. You also see that in Peter Copping's own work. He's someone that does have a love for interiors and architecture, and I also found it interesting that he was a contributing editor at Architectural Digest. So yes, anyways, I was just a little bit curious. I just saw the story pop up on my phone and I wanted to look into it a little bit further. So yes, anyways guys, that is my video. I am very excited to see what comes down the runway, this fall winter 2025 collection we will see, and I'm really curious as to see what Peter Copping does with the brand. I'm really excited to see the direction of the brand. Would love to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me in another video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!